We're going to start recording, I think. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to ATC2020. It's our online asynchronous technology conference hosted at Streetsboro City Schools. My name is Andreas Johansson. I'm the Director of Operations here at Streetsboro. And with me today is Dan Stitzel. He's our district technology coach, and he's amazing. He's the guy in yellow shirt. He's going to lead us through Whiteboards Galore. I'm gonna tune down the trans music here, even though you know, it is what it is. Let's see, stop the share. We're live, we're recording. Dan's gonna talk to us about whiteboards. If you have questions, send them in the chat. I'll be the co-moderator, I guess, and help out and get questions over to Dan. And Dan, take it away.
All right, well, good morning. Thank you for joining. It's nice to see like all the familiar faces over here, and it's nice to see people I don't know, so it makes it exciting. The reason I decided to do this session today is with the idea of possibly being remote, being hybrid, and districts being remote and hybrid already all over the country, all over the world. One of the things that teachers were asking about was having different options for whiteboards. So if they're in a Zoom or they're doing a Google Meet, how can they have that whiteboard element that would normally be, you know, at the front of their classroom? They could be writing quick notes, they could be putting up math problems, they could, you know, be showing examples of work and annotating with their students watching. So the way that I'm going to kind of walk through this is I'm going to first start with just some of the basics with screen sharing. So screen sharing in Zoom, screen sharing in Google Meet, just to kind of give you different options on what might work best for this whiteboard method. And then I'll talk about some of the maybe kind of just basic Canvas style whiteboards that we have at our Access. And then I'll go into some external websites that I've come across that have some really cool features. Some have some paid elements, some all have free elements though. So I'll go over those free elements more than anything, because I don't think any of us want to, you know, pay money if we don't have to. So I'll go over all of that. I am going to start sharing my screen now. So let's hope that this works here. So are we all seeing that screen? It should be loading here.
Yeah, looks good, Dan. Looks good.
Whiteboards Galore. Yeah. Perfect. So go again. My name is Dan Stitzel. Like Andre said, I am our district technology coach in Streetsboro, which is in Ohio. So it's close to Kent State, if you know where that is. You can connect to me on Twitter. I do have an Instagram that has some random little tips and tricks. That's technique tips. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't updated it recently, but you can check that out as well. And then you can always email me if you have any questions about today's session, or if you want, you know, if you have questions about anything, I am more than willing to help. So like I said, we're going to go over presenting in Google Meet, and then we'll go over screen sharing in Zoom. So they call it presenting in Google Meet. They call it sharing your screen in Zoom. It's the same thing. It's just what I'm doing right now. It's showing the screen that I have in front of me. And then, like I said, we'll go through all those different whiteboard options. Now, I do want to allot some time at the end when this session is over for you to play around with these different tools. So we might end a little earlier than the full hour. That way you have time to try these different whiteboards out before you have to, you know, before the next session, if you're joining us for another session, or if you have to go to a TBT or a meeting or whatever it might be. I want to give you some time while it's still fresh to play around with that. So first thing, presenting in Google Meet. So we use Google in Streetsboro. That's our platform. So with our students, we've been using Google Meet. So I want to kind of go over the different options there. When you want to launch, or when you want to set up that meeting with your students, you want to eventually share your screen and use that whiteboard. The first thing you're going to do is launch that Google Meet. The method you take is up to you, whether you do it through Google Classroom, whether you post that link to your Google Classroom, whether you set it up through Google Calendar. There are all different ways that you can start that Meet. But what we're going to focus on today is that presentation style while you're in that Meet. So you'll notice that what I have, this image right here, is actually kind of a menu that's down at the bottom of your Google Meet. And in the far right, you have the button that says Present Now. So when you're ready to share your screen, after you've greeted your students, you've greeted your coworkers, whatever it might be, you're going to click Present Now, and then this menu is going to pop up. You have three options. Your entire screen is going to show everything that's on your screen. It's going to show all the tabs you have open. It's going to show, you know, anytime you switch from tab to tab, it's going to switch with you. which there are times that's great because sometimes we know in our presentations we do have to switch from tab to tab, but sometimes you don't want all of that information being shown as well. A window, that's if you're just basically going to stay on one screen. So a window would be if you open a separate window ahead of time. So let's say before your meet, 5 minutes before your meet, you open a separate window in Google Chrome and you put all of the information that you're going to need for that class's meeting there. So maybe a presentation, maybe the whiteboard element that you choose to use that we go over today. You have it in that separate window. So when it's time to share your screen, you'll choose that window. You won't be showing your entire screen that you're currently on. A Chrome tab, that third option, is the best choice for if you are going to share a video or some type of animation. So I know in the spring there were some issues with showing YouTube videos and the sound wasn't coming through or the image was kind of choppy. They launched this Chrome tab option, and I'm not exactly sure when they launched. I believe it was late March, April, if I remember correctly. And that actually really helps with the streaming of that video. So your students can hear the audio and also watch the video at the same time. So those are your 3 options in Google Meet. Again, if I'm showing a video, I would do a Chrome tab. If I'm just doing my whiteboard element, I would have it set up already in a separate window. So then it's easy for me just to choose that. It's not going to show my entire screen while I'm getting it set up. Screen sharing in Zoom. So it's a little different. You have a couple more options. Same thing, you're going to launch your Zoom call. So you would have that set up ahead of time, however you share that join code out with your students, staff members, whatever it might be, you'd have that set up. And then down at the bottom, you're going to see a green button that says share screen. When you click share screen, you've got a couple different options there. The first one is your desktop. So that's like when we were in our Google Meet, that's your entire screen essentially. You're going to be able to jump from tab to tab. It's going to show all your windows, all the different things that you have open. What's a really nice feature right in Zoom is they actually have a built-in whiteboard. So you can actually, if you're going to share your screen and you don't want to use one of these external whiteboard methods I'm going to show you today, they have a whiteboard already there for you. So you could click that and then it's going to pull that whiteboard up instead of a different window. Down here, this would be, again, a different window. They're going to show up. So all the windows you have open will show up down here. And it would just be like when you were in your Google Meet where you chose a window. In your Zoom, you're also going to choose that window. So just like you did for your Meet, you'd probably want to have everything already set up in that window so that when you click on it, everything you need for that class meeting or that Zoom call is already there in that one place. All right, so let's start talking about whiteboards. The first one I want to talk about is Google Canvas. So Google Canvas is very simple. It's essentially if you were in front of your classroom with a dry erase marker and you had a white, that your old school, whiteboard, and you're up there, you're writing. That's kind of what Google Canvas is, and there's beauty in the simplicity. There's not a lot of bells and whistles. It's one of those things where you can just kind of write a quick note. You can show a quick, problem. You can just kind of give an example to students in a very, simple manner. So I'm going to click here, and if I did put, and I'll show you again at the end, I did put the link to this slideshow on the first slide at Bitly. And all of these slides are linked to these different elements I'm talking about. So if you click on this example here, it's going to take us to Canvas, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I have a couple options here. So when I get in here, all my previous Canvas drawings or whiteboard times that, that I've previously done with my students are going to show here. Now I went through and I kind of cleared them out ahead of time before this presentation, so you're only seeing the one. But you have 2 options. You can do a new drawing, or you can do new from an image. So if you have some type of graphic organizer saved as an image on your desktop already or in your drive, you can do new from image and use that as the background. Or if you just want to start blank canvas, you go to new drawing. And again, it's very simple. You've got a couple options over here. This first option would be your color palette, very simple color palette. This would be the size and the opacity of that color that you choose. So if you want to make your font a little bigger, a little larger, you'd go this route. Then you've got pencil, you've got your pen, your marker, chalk, and then you've got your eraser. So again, this would be a really good tool for if I just want to write a quick note to my students or show them, a quick example. If I'm not a math teacher, so bear with me here. I go pretty simple for my examples so I don't mess them up. But I could show it in real time. So I chose this method as my whiteboard. I'm already sharing my screen. I'm talking to my students still. I can say, hey, 5 plus 2 is 7. And then I could even, add examples. I got 5 little, little circles, 1, 2, 3, 5. And then, I could show them, whatever method you want to take, but they're going to see that in real time, which is nice about that whiteboard method. At any point, you can go ahead and you can, undo, you can redo, you have all those options there. You'll notice over here in the right, I've got a couple options. I can layer, so I can add layers to this. So if I want to add another layer over this, I could do that. It's going to kind of put a blank canvas. And when I click on that to add that other layer, I can start, drawing things here that are part of that layer. And then at any point, if I want to get rid of a layer, I can just delete it out and it will be gone. And you can add quite a few layers there. This is also where you can change the background of your canvas. So if, especially for, I know some students prefer more of the black background with the white writing or whatever it is, for accessibility reasons, you could go that route. The 3 dots right here are going to give you just a very simple option is to save this as an image when you're done. So if this is something that you go over a method of, solving an equation or whatever it might be, when you're done, you can click save it as an image, and then you could upload that image right to your Google Classroom as a resource for your students that they could go back to and they could see. So that's Canvas. So this is Google Canvas. It's, again, very, very simple, but there's, again, beauty in that simplicity that you can just, give a real quick example without a lot of bells and whistles. The next whiteboard tool I want to show you is Jamboard. And before I go any further on Jamboard, I'm super excited because they are actually going to embed Jamboard into Google Meet in the near future. So I showed you in Zoom, have a whiteboard element already built in. It is going to be Google Meet's embedded whiteboard element. I am not sure exactly when that's rolling out, but Google did quite a few updates for Google Meet over the summer. They were getting things updated that are rolling out in late August, September, October. So that element will eventually be there, which is really great. I assume, and I'm not entirely sure because I don't work for Google, but I assume that when you go to present your screen, it's going to be one of the options right there. Just like in Zoom, when you want to present your screen, you have the option of the whiteboard. My assumption is you'll have the option of a Jamboard. Not entirely sure, but that's what I would think. Jamboard's excellent. So it's part of your G Suite. So if you are in a Google district and you have that waffle grid up in the corner, you have that G Suite, Jamboard is there. And what you do is you create jams. So jams are those different boards. So I have all these different jams here. So when I click on Jamboard, and again, if I'm in my waffle grid, I can look for that Jamboard icon. It's right here. I click that, it's going to take me to this exact same place. You'll see. And all my jams that I've previously created are there, but I have this option down here in the corner to create a new jam. So if I click new jam, it's going to bring up, again, a pretty basic canvas. There's a couple more options that are really nice tools. But again, it's pretty simple. And again, there's beauty in that simplicity. There's not a ton of distractions. The first thing I want to point out is you're going to want to give it a title. So this might, just be your sample jam, whatever you want to call it. Because you can add jams right to Google Classroom like you would add a doc or a sheet or slides, whatever it might be. So it's good to always have that titled element. So if you do add it to your Google Classroom, you know what to look for. Up here, you have the option to expand up to 20 frames. So if you have 15 students in your class, you could actually create a frame for each of them, which is kind of nice. So this is your canvas here. So your canvas is the white canvas, just like in Google Canvas. And you have those simple options over here. You can, you have your different pens, different width, you have a paintbrush, and things like that, different colors, very simple palette. You have your eraser, so at any point you can erase things that you want to take off. Your pointer, so you can select things. This is probably my favorite feature here, the sticky notes. So when I post this, I can click save, and I can color code them. So, if you're doing something with different parts of speech or whatever it might be, you could have those sticky notes color coded, and then you can click on those sticky notes, you can drag them, you can make them larger. The sticky notes are actually the only way to insert links into Jamboard as well. So if you were doing a lesson with your students on a Jamboard and you wanted them to click on a link to go to an external website or whatever it might be, you would just create a sticky note and paste that link right here, and then they would be able to go that method. You can add images. So you can add images right into your Jam. So you can search from your drive, Google image search. And what's nice about that, anytime you see that Google image search, those are already labeled for reuse. So they pull up those images that you're able to use with your students without copyright issues. If you have photos saved to your computer, you can use that route. You can upload files from your device as well. Text box down here. So you can go ahead and do that. You can make it larger. You've got some options here. You can duplicate that text. You can kind of edit it. If you have multiple layers, so let's say you have all these different images and words, you can select the orders. You can send things to the back. You can keep things in the front. So students can kind of create collages on here. It's a really great collage tool, especially with those images and those sticky notes. And then this feature down here, this laser, is pretty neat. So this would be enough. I'm in a Google Meet and I'm using Jamboard and I want my students to really focus on one of the elements that I've put on here. If I click and drag around it, it kind of does that where it's like that tail feature where it emphasizes it, but that circle goes away. It's not going to stay there. So you can really kind of draw attention to that element. You could change the background, and there's some pretty cool backgrounds for different subjects. So you could have your grid. You've got all these different like lined paper almost, so you could play around with that. The colors are, again, very simple. You have a white background, a darker blue, and a black. The dark blue, again, it might be something to help your students for, visual reasons. Maybe they need that darker background with the lighter text, whatever it might be. You have that option. And at any point, you can clear the frame. Okay, so you can get rid of the text that was there. You can bring it back if you want to as well. Over here in the three dots for the more actions, when you're done, you can download this as a PDF. You can download it as an image. Both of those options then you could upload those right to your Google Classroom for future reference for your students or staff, whatever it might be. Sharing is just like sharing with all your other Google tools. So just like sharing in Docs, Slides. So you can select people that you want to share with. So if I choose Andreas here, when I share with him, I can either share it as he's a viewer, so he can see the Jam that I created, or he is an editor. So he can go and he's able to also be on that same Jam with me, and he could be adding to it. So for the sake of the whiteboard element, so if we're doing this in Google Meet and we're using it as a whiteboard, I can post this Jam. Again, I can create it just like upload it just like I would a Google Doc to an assignment or to a material in Google Classroom. And I'll have the option there where my students can either be all editors or they can be viewers. So if I want everyone to be working on these Jams while we're talking in our Google Meet, I would set them as editors. I might have them all on one of these frames, or I might have an individual frame for each of them, or a frame for each group, whatever it might be. But that's how I would kind of pass that out to them, or I can share it this way as well. That's Jamboard. And again, what's really nice about Jamboard, it is coming to Google Meet. It will be part of Google Meet. So you won't have to worry about screen sharing from a different window. You should just be able to screen share right from Google, which is really, really cool. The third Google tool that you can use as a whiteboard is Google Drawings. So Google Drawings is essentially a blank canvas as well. And there's more elements to it though. You can add text boxes, you can add images, very similar to Jamboard. I'll go through it quickly, but it's very similar to Jamboard as far as what tools are there for you. So you have your blank canvas. What's nice about in Google Drawings is you can actually change the page setup. So it's going to go to a standard 4:3, but you can make it more of a widescreen if you would rather go that route. So you can actually expand the canvas. You can make the canvas smaller, depending on what it is that you're doing with your students. Again, you'd be sharing this into your Meet as a screen share or into your Zoom. And again, very similar. You've got some shapes here, so it's a little bit different element than the other ones. You could, do more, I guess, geometrical work. You have text boxes. So you could be adding some notes there via text box. You can change the background, or excuse me, the fill color. To change the background, you right click on it. You have options very similar. So you could change the color depending on, if students need a darker background, a lighter background. You can't set the background as an image. You could put an image in the back and send it to the back, but it's not going to lock in. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. It could move around if students click and drag on it. But what's nice about Google Drawings as a whiteboard, just like Jamboard, you have those sharing features where you can click and you can choose who you want to share it with, so people could be collaborating together, or you could upload that Google drawing right to your Google Classroom as well, so students could get into it. They could be collaborating in real time as you're having that Google Meet, as you're having that Zoom, whatever it might be. I also like something I think I like about Google Drawings as a whiteboard is you could be adding comments. So if I share this with my students as comment only, as I'm going over the lesson and I'm using this as a whiteboard, they can be commenting and I can see their comments and I can address that rather than having to use the chat feature in Meet or Zoom. Or raising their hand and me kind of stopping. I can see those comments and I could reply, kind of right there in real time, which is pretty cool. And again, your Google Drawings and your Jamboards are going to save to your drive, so those will be there for you to go back to reuse, to edit. You have access to that, so you can post it to your classroom as a reference. Those are the 3 Google-inspired whiteboard options. Now, the next ones I'm going to show you are websites to explore. Now, I am not an ambassador for any of these websites. They're just ones that I've come across that I have found to be pretty cool. I've dabbled with them. I've used them just over the last couple of weeks. I've set up, student accounts for myself, so I'll get on as a student and the teacher to kind of see what it looks like. These would all be for screen sharing. These would be ones that you would want to have open in a separate window, so that when it's time to have that meet, you would be ready to click on that window, share it. It would be up for your students to see. So the first one is AWApp. So if you go to awapp.com, that's how you would get there. And it has a couple more features than those Google ones, but it's pretty simple. When you click on it, when you go to AWApp, you're going to start drawing. Now there are premium features. They do have a 14-day trial, which I think I'm part of right now. But I played around with it before it threw me into the trial, and there were plenty of features that you can use that you don't need the paid version, so to speak. I'm sure with the paid version, you do get a lot of extra elements that are really, really great, but the free version is pretty awesome too. So if you hit start drawing, you've got some options over here. So you can, you have your color palettes. Okay, so you have your different colors that you can choose for your text. You can even add some more. Your drawing features, you've got a pen, you've got the marker, you have arrows, which is kind of nice. So you can use some mind maps. You can, connecting different thoughts. The line's pretty cool. So you can, do lines and you can do your different angles with the lines, especially because there's the background there will kind of help you with that. The size, okay, you can adjust the size of those lines of that font. Erase, you can add shapes right in here. So similar to drawings in Jamboard, you have those shapes, text box, and then very similar to Jamboard, you have post-it notes. So if I click, I can actually add a little post-it note in there, which is pretty neat. And then you can upload right into this app a PDF or a PowerPoint image or a doc, which is really neat. So you can kind of have that there to work with. Down at the bottom, you can add more. Okay, so you can add more pages to your app, which is pretty cool. The premium features would be something that you would want to explore on your own if you choose to use this. I know in the classroom, probably the Google ones would suffice, the Google, Jamboard and Canvas and drawings, but this might be something that's a little more complex I'm just throwing out some ideas that you could try. If you click invite, this is where you can share a URL. Okay, so this is where if I wanted to invite students to this or coworkers, I could share that URL. I can invite via email. These features, allow everyone to view and share for each user. These are premium features. So if you're using just the free version, everyone can edit. So that's something to keep in mind. So if you're using just the free basic version, when you share this canvas with people, this whiteboard option, they can edit it. So that's just something to always keep in mind. Over here, you can just play around with full screen, the size of what you're seeing. This feature down here, it's a mouse pointer. That is also part of the premium features. So that would be something that you can use to emphasize. But again, you would have to have that premium, or that trial, whatever it might be, to try that out. And then when you're done, you can export your board as a PDF or an image. So just like the other options, you could post that to your Google Classroom. You can, you have those options there. That's all I have. Again, just something that I've come across. It looked pretty neat. I have not used it personally with students, but I was playing around with it. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Oh, the other thing I didn't point out is you can share, when you share that link, you can also share via QR code, which is really neat. So your students could just scan the QR code, or whoever it is that's accessing that whiteboard. If you're not doing it via Google Meet, but you want them to still have access to it, there's that QR code element, which is really cool. Whiteboardfi is really neat. One of our staff members actually this summer emailed me. I was like, hey, do you know anything about this? And so I played around with it, and it's really, really cool. What's neat about this whiteboard feature is on the mobile end as a student, or if they're using their Chromebook, if I share my whiteboard I create, so maybe on my whiteboard that I create, I have a math problem. If I share it, I can push it out to all my students. So what you're seeing down here with this like upside down smiley face, that's the student's whiteboard, but my whiteboard would be right here. So mine's going to be right above theirs. And then below that, they could try and solve the problem. They could try, and do whatever, or replicate whatever my example is, whatever it might be. But my whiteboard is right above there. So they don't have to like look from screen to screen. And I can push that out as the teacher. As the teacher, I can say that I want my students to have access to my whiteboard so that when they're playing around with theirs, they see that. When you get into Whiteboardfi, you have a couple startup options. You can create a new class. You can join a class. So that's how the students would join it, via a code. Or if it's within 120 minutes, you can resume that class. From what I've gathered, after 120 minutes, it will delete out what you had before. It will kind of reset. So if you're at the end of a session and you want to make sure, and you want your whiteboard to be saved for future reference, you would want to save that. And I'll show you some of those ways of doing that, like a PDF image like we saw before. So you can go back and reference that. Show you here. It's pretty cool. So here's that startup. Because I have not opened up a whiteboard in the last 2 hours, my options are a new class or a join class. So if I click new class, it gives me all these setting options right here, which is really cool. So the first one is enable waiting room lobby. So if I turn that on, the students have to be accepted. So me as the teacher have to accept them into that whiteboard. So we're in a Google Meet already. And I say, okay, guys, I just sent you the join code. I can have it so then when they join, I can see that they're getting into the waiting room for that whiteboard as well. And, and I can accept them, or say, sorry, you're not part of our class type of situation. You can enable image uploads for students, so you can actually turn that off. So if you're afraid of what images might be uploaded, I would click right now. It's defaulted that, hey, they don't have access to that. But if I want them to be able to add images, I would turn that on. Simple mode, so you can force simple mode for students. And what that does is like kind of like a lower end device might have some connection, if you're in a Wi-Fi situation where it's not the best Wi-Fi, or you're not, they're using their network or whatever it might be. The higher level features can actually make it really slow for them. So you can turn this simple mode on for students, and and there's other reasons you would turn that on. You can read the description there, but that would kind of help with that problem. And then slow mode for students as well. That will disable the automatic saving functions. So instead of it showing save whiteboard, it will actually, it's not going to display that. It kind of helps them go at their own pace, which is really nice. They can draw a little more freely type of situation. So we'll just turn these on. Once I click create new class, it's going to give a code to that whiteboard. So my students, when they want to join, so if they were to click back on that main page where it said join, they could put this code in, or I can just paste this link right to Google Class or right in our Google Meet chat, whatever it might be. They click on it, and then they'll have to, go into that waiting room type of situation if I turn it on. Here's what my whiteboard looks like though. So my whiteboard, it's very simple, similar to the other ones that we saw. We have free drawing mode. We've got some text boxes. Okay, we've got different shapes. And then again, we have that image option. And then the background image, if I wanted to insert a background image. So again, if I wanted to insert some type of graphic organizer or coordinate grid, whatever it might be, I could set it as the background. So then what I put on top of it, that background's not going to move. It's going to stay stationary there. You can change the size down here, the opacity. And then at any point too, you can turn on where it's simple mode for teachers as well. So it's kind of that lighter version, it's just like the student version of the simple mode. And then you can also turn on slow mode for teachers as well. You have that option. If I click actions, this is where I can push my whiteboard to all students. So if I want my students to have, I want them to see my whiteboard. Like I want them, if we're in a Google Meet and my whiteboard is open, they're going to see it. But if we're doing this not via Google Meet, they're just, on their whiteboard, on their phone or on their Chromebook, whatever it might be, I can push my whiteboard to them and they'll have access to it. When you're done, if I go up to the settings here, I can save it as a PDF. So again, I can post this to my Google Classroom for future reference. This box is really nice for hide names. So if I click hide names and my students are on my whiteboard and they can see, other people that are part of that whiteboard, it will turn the names off. So they're not going to have that information there, which is nice. Very cool. But again, what's really cool, I think my favorite feature of this tool was that feature where if they're using, if I push my whiteboard to them, they have their canvas down here. Mine's going to be on top because it says toggle teacher whiteboard. So if they click that, they'll be able to see it. So they can replicate or they can answer the problem right there, which is really neat. Sketchboard. So Sketchboard is, so the next two, or the next couple, I think Sketchboard, yeah, and Miro, these are the last two. From what I've gathered based on playing around with them, they're definitely more geared towards the business world, but they can be used with, as a screen sharing during a Google Meet, during a Zoom call. So if you're on Sketchboard, there are a couple more features here. I like over here, you have these different images, these different, kind of almost templates that you can throw into your whiteboard. So if I'm mirroring this, I'm screen sharing this, I could be dropping notes in for my students to see. There's all these different options. I like this one up here. Where was that? Where the pieces kind of connect to each other, the different components. Okay, so I could, have them be building, they could be brainstorming ideas and how these different elements work together to get to a final product or whatever it might be. You'll notice very similar again to the other features. You've got, you can freehand, so you could be working on your math problems. Again, just another option for you as a teacher to, be sharing a whiteboard while you're in that conference, working through Zoom or through Google Meet, whatever it might be. Some images over here, so you can, grab from your library. There's some extras that have some pretty cool little elements. The roadmaps, again, kind of building things, putting things together. And then again, the mind map there is pretty cool. So you could play around with that. Again, this, as you can tell by this little upgrade button down here, this is definitely kind of a freemium. So it's one of those things where there's free elements, but you could also, if you really like this, you could definitely, pay for more and get, those extra elements, but that would be totally up to you. I just came across it. That was kind of a cool canvas to play around with. The last one I want to show you is Miro. So when you access Miro, you have a couple of different options. And this, my favorite feature of it is the abundance of templates that they give you. So this would be really cool. Like I'm a former language arts teacher, so I'm always going back to kind of pre-writing and brainstorming. It's just always something that we did in my classes. And so the templates here are really neat. They have like mind maps. So if I click on this mind map, it's already going to kind of have that template set up for me. So if I'm explaining to my students kind of how you go from your subject and then you throw in different ideas, I can use this mind map template here. And I can, start filling things in for them to give them an example, or they could be using this mind map and they could be filling in those different ideas. You'll notice over here on the side, there are quite a few different options. So you have those sticky notes again. You can be drawing shapes. You can be, you can be writing using a pen. There's also a comment feature. So if you're collaborating using this, you could be, commenting in real time as well. Sharing. So what's kind of neat about this is you create teams. So this might be a team with your staff, or it might be a team with your students, whatever it might be, depending on security and how comfortable your district is with using a website for something like this. But you give access then via that to your team members. So you can have it so your team members can view, just comment using that little button I just showed you. They can edit. All those features are there. You can invite via a link, which is kind of nice, and just like in Google. So when you invite via link, you can invite via viewing, commenting, editing as well. So that's kind of neat there. And then when you're done, just like the other ones, you can save it as an image. You can save it as a PNG. Those would be probably the ones that we would use, or excuse me, PDF. Those would be the ones that we would use most in the educational world, so that students can see that as a reference when looking back on it. My advice, so I know I just went over all these different tools. Personally, I found these last three just to be really cool. They're just ones I think that to play around with, see if it is something that is fitting for your students, the age level of your students, your districts, how, I guess, like the level of security in your district. Do they want you using only things that are in the Google platform, or are they okay with you using, these whiteboard elements that are, actual websites outside of Google? They're just neat. If anything, if you're not going to use them with your students, they're definitely things that if we do get to the point where we're virtually planning in TBTs with our colleagues, from all over, pulling up one of these, Sketchboard or using Miro or using, Whiteboard, just to help each other out collaboratively is pretty cool. But these ones, Google Drawing, Jamboard, Google Canvas, again, there's beauty in the simplicity there, especially with your students. It's not overwhelming. It's just a nice, you kind of have to imagine that these three are literally just taking the place of that dry erase board or that, Epson projector board that's in front of your classroom where you grab a pen and you do a quick example. Just as a friendly reminder to even share these with your students via Google Meet, you would go to the Present Now, and then I would have all these already open in a separate window, and I would just choose that window. If you're using Zoom, you would go to share screen at the bottom. And again, I would probably already have these set up in a window down here so that when I click it, it's going to take me right to the things that I need. So I don't have to search around, find it, because that could be distracting to the people that are also part of that call with you. There's about 20 minutes till the end of the hour, but like I said, I wanted you to have some time to actually try these things out before you went to the next session or before you had to get to a separate meeting. I'll go ahead and my contact information.
Dan, we do have a question for you.
Yeah.
So Amy Johnson asked, and I think this was earlier, do you assign each kid only their specific frame in the whiteboard? I think it was one of the earlier tools that you worked on.
All right. So in Jamboard, so what you would do if you're using Jamboard, let me get to Jamboard. Sorry, I'm jumping all around here. You would assign the whole jam. So you would post the whole jam to Google Classroom, and then you as a teacher would kind of delegate, hey, your frame 1, your frame 2. But what you can do is just put their name. So let's say, so this is our class jam here. And I can just do a quick text box and be like, this is Nick's. And then the next frame is Charlie. Next frame, Dan. So you could say, kind of like go through the different frames, go through the jam and find your name. That's your page to be working on. I think something to really keep in mind, though, is a lot of these would be, when you're in that Google Meet, these are just tools that you can pull up real quick. You can do a quick equation. You can do a quick, example of something. So you might not always be using Jamboard in different frames. You might just all be on the same frame, but that's how you would kind of delegate that. And then again, you would just take, when you're in Google Classroom, just like you were uploading a Google Doc or uploading a sheet or a slideshow, you would go to add at the bottom, and then from your drive, you would find this file, class jam, and you would upload it. And then that's where you would decide if it's, every kid gets their own copy or every student is editing the same one type of situation.
Great.
Anything else? Again, my contact information. Back to the beginning here.
And it's true, just to point out for those of you meeting at home, right? Because we see a lot of people in today's session here that are not from Streetsboro schools, which is like super amazing. Oh, the forest is getting away of my face. But, contact Dan, contact myself. We're happy to help regardless of what district you're in.
Yeah.
Because we just want you to do better and be faster and all that jazz.
Yeah, so those are some options. Again, I would take the next couple minutes personally and just play around with them. I did put in the beginning of that slideshow, and you know what, let me go back to that. I'll show you so you can put the bit.ly in if you want. I did put
Russell wants you to share your slide deck, Dan. Are you willing to share your slide deck?
Yep, that's what I was saying right here. So down at the bottom, once my little thing goes over here, so bit.ly/whiteboards ATC. It is case sensitive. So it's bit.ly/W for whiteboards, capital ATC, and that will take you to the slide deck. So you can then click on each of those different whiteboard options and play around with them. So you don't have to try and search them on your own.
And we'll have it. So we're building a dedicated website for all the recordings. And so we'll put that there too. So if the presenter wants to share their slide deck, we'll throw the public link up there so that you have the video, the slide deck, the resources. Dan, are we free to mix and match, right? If someone wanted to borrow this and take it to their staff?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. Why not? Take the recording, we're not copyright fiends over here, so we'll just share it out. Secret code, listen, we made a quick fly. Dan doesn't know, but I just made an executive decision. We'll just take that secret code out. If you need your certificate, just send in the request. I posted the link in the chat over there. It'll be available, but I will say this. It's only going to be available today. So if you need your certificate of attendance, it will only be available today. So it's meant for you that are here in the live session, being on the edge of learning with us here at Streetsboro. So there you go. Any other questions? Good words in the chat. Good. Boy, this forest is getting in the way. Hold on. It's like, it's not doing it for me. Hold on. I feel like I work out. There we go. That's my no filter. My bookcases. It is what it is. Some say the error in the link there. It is case sensitive. I feel like when I click on it, and that's the ATC here. I'm gonna show it out, throw it out to everyone again. So like, here's the recordings link. Oops, if I can spell it right. Go there, and then they'll be up at the end of the day because we're trying to record and download and edit as we go here. So. Dan, you got anything else or that's it?
That's it. I can throw in the link real quick just to make sure, because I just tested it and it does work.
Yeah, that link works, and it works for me still. Russell, try the sites.google.scs, right? The full link there. And Russell, if that does not work, it might be that your IT administrator is blocking Google Sites. So that could very well be, because it is working on our end, but we'll work on it. We'll see if we can make it work. With a couple of Vesna saying too that the link, there's an error. Try the long link, the one that's sites.google.com/scsrockets.org/ATC2020. Yes, and Annette says, I do think it's your domain. So some IT administrators will block Google Sites for you, and so we are sorry about that. But there you go. All right. Have a good morning. And the next session up, Dan, what is it? It's going to be Melissa Payden talking about Flipgrid, which is another amazing, amazing tool to use with your students. Dan, do you think little kids can use Flipgrids?
I know for a fact they can. So, and actually,
Missy will show how to rock it out in a first grade classroom. Like it's unreal to see it. And so don't be scared. We'll see you at 10 o'clock. It'll open up at 11 o'clock. I'm sorry. We'll open up here in another 10 minutes for Flipgrid. Have a good morning.
Thank you. Have a good one.